August 22nd meeting. Member will be allowed to address the board during the board's consideration of each agenda item. If you wish to speak,
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Let us look to God in whatever shape or form God takes for each of us to guide this meeting with wisdom and with compassion, that the actions taken today would be for the benefit of all people in Sutter County, that the words spoken would not only be heard but listened to and understood. And that we would all seek to listen to one another truly and deeply in a spirit of love and compassion. Amen.
have David Holycross, if you please join us down here for a presentation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to recognize David Holycross for 25 years, 25-year anniversary for Holy Cross Funeral Home and Crematory in Yuba City. So we have a certificate of recognition presented to Holy Cross Funeral Home and Crematory, Inc. 25th anniversary, August of 2023. The Sutter County Board of Supervisors recognizes David Holycross and Holy Cross Funeral Homes and Crematory, Inc. on the 25th anniversary of business in Sutter County. We greatly value your contributions to our community and offer our sincere congratulations on your success.
Sure. Thank you, guys. My friends and supervisors, thank you for this honor. In the heart of the district, Dan Flores. One thing I want to, I started my business 25 years ago, and one thing I want to say, about 24 of the years I've been on the Sutter County Sheriff Coroner's rotation, and which I still am today. I see Mr. Smallwood back there. But anyway, I love being working with the Sutter County Sheriff Department. It's a good, I'm kind of working, I'm the owner, but when I'm on with these guys, I'm working for you guys. So it's a win-win. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate this.
All right. Thank you.
Man, I don't think there's a community event that Dave doesn't go to in Sutter County or even Yuba County. Huge support of the community in so many different ways, and we love being friends with you. Love seeing you out there, support the community. Thank you for everything.
your team up, Rick. Rick, Bingham, come on down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to present a proclamation. Whereas the week of September 4th through 10th, 2023 is National Suicide Prevention Week, a time in which individuals, organizations, and communities around the country, join their voices to amplify the message that suicide could be prevented. And whereas it is recognized that people of all ages benefit from common tenets of wellness, such as access to effective health and behavioral health care, social support, and sense of meaning and purpose. And whereas attitudes and perceptions about aging, behavioral health challenges, and suicide have a significant impact on individual wellness and the willingness to reach out for support and services that can alleviate distress. And whereas cultivating and maintaining wellness is a lifelong pursuit, and individuals of all ages could benefit from integrating wellness into their daily routine to prevent or reduce the severity of a broad range of health and behavioral health conditions. And whereas knowing the signs of suicide, finding the words to talk with someone maybe thinking of suicide, and reaching out to local resources are steps everyone can take to care for themselves and others. And whereas the Californians are urged to play a role in suicide prevention and promote mental health and wellness as we strive towards zero suicides. And whereas September 4th through 10th of 2023 is recognized across the United States as Suicide Prevention Week, providing the opportunity to educate and engage everyone in our community to find their role in suicide prevention. Now, therefore, the Sutter County Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim the week of September 4th through 10th, 2023 as Suicide Prevention Week, and the day of September 10th, 2023 as World Suicide Prevention Day. In witness whereof, I, Carmen Baines, Chairman of the Board of Sutter County Supervisors, do hereby set my hand and cause the official seal of the County of Sutter to be affixed to the 22nd day of August to this proclamation. Congratulations.
A 38% reduction in suicide attempts just from therapy, and a 55% reduction in thoughts of suicide. So again, we just want to remember that this is something that we can treat and that we can prevent. Of course, one of those things that sometimes prevents people from
Well, on behalf of Behavioral Health Prevention and Early Intervention Program, I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for the proclamation, and also invite everyone that's here present to come and participate in our walk that's taking place on Saturday, September 30th at Veterans Park in Marysville. It'll start off at 8 a.m. with registration, and then we'll have an opening ceremony with our Board of Supervisors and a keynote speaker. This is a free event for the public, and it will help raise awareness and also reduce the stigma of suicide. It's not a marathon, it's just a 1.4-mile walk across the 5th Street Bridge, and really it is just a show of solidarity so that everyone in our community can see that we all stand behind this message of suicide prevention and awareness. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, at this time, we're going to bring item 18. We have a presentation. We're going to bring that before the public comment.
Receive a presentation from Cosmont Real Estate Services on the Surplus Land Act process related to county-owned properties. Consider declaring 7 county-owned properties surplus for the purpose of completing the Surplus Land Act process. Consider full payment of principal and accrued interest owed to Bank of the West in an approximate amount of $6.05 million and repayment from the general fund to the Health and Social Services Development Impact Fee Fund of $3,585,000 and $523. Due to ceasing the Health and Human Services building project on county-owned property located at 812, 828, 832, 850, and 860 Gray Avenue in Yuba City, and adoption of the related resolution.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Supervisors. Steve Smith, County Administrator. I have brief introductory notes to this, and then we'll turn it over to Larry Cosmont for a presentation on the Surplus Land Act and the process Cosmont will be going through on behalf of the county if approved by the board. So, yes, part of this is receiving a report on the Surplus Land Act back in March. The board was presented and authorized staff to move forward with declaring 7 county-owned properties surplus. Those properties, the most significant of which is the Gray Avenue complex, formerly where K-Mart was. There's a Public Works road yard on 275 Samuel. There's a former road yard on Sawtell Avenue, about 11 miles south of Yuba City. The former animal control building over by the Sutter County Airport that is now demolished. There's a lot between Garden Highway and the new animal shelter. There's a house in Meridian that is related to CDBG improvements over the years. And there's the former sign shop on Acacia Avenue in the town of Sutter. But additionally, we recommend you authorize disbursement of $3,585,523 to the Health and Social Services Development Impact Fee Fund to pay it back for use of its funds in development of plans for the property at Gray Avenue, and approve in concept the recommended budget increase to allow for that, and also authorize full payment of the remaining balance of approximately $6.05 million of the tax-exempt financing with Bank of the West issued in May 2021. So that will free the property up of any financial obligations from the county, and then proceeds from that sale can then be backfilled into the general fund or appropriate funds as needed. So, as I mentioned, Larry Cosmont is online with us. We had someone scheduled to be here. Unfortunately, they fell ill, and I really appreciate Larry filling in to go over. Larry, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me, Mr. Smith?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Smith, and hello to the board chair, members of the board. Larry Cosmont, President, CEO, Cosmont Realty. We've had the privilege of being retained by the county to assist in the compliance of the State Surplus Land Act, its newest iteration. I also have online with me Brian Moncrief, who was not able to fly up, but he's hanging by his desk and he's recovering, but he's here to help me out as needed, and also Stephanie Ontiveros. The Cosmont team, as Mr. Smith pointed out, is really in the process of assisting the county expose these properties in compliance with the Surplus Land Act. So let me explain a little bit about what this is all focused on. As you know, and I'll go, I don't know if the slides are up, I can't quite see, but I'm on slide 3. What is the Surplus Land Act? If you can get there, just let me know. The Surplus Land Act is a iteration of what Cosmont considers as an ongoing approach by the state to induce, motivate, and at some level impose the development of affordable housing throughout the state. It is no secret that California has declared housing as an urgency matter. And we've seen, I think back to that slide. Thanks. I'll just say next when I'm ready. Back again. Thank you so much. So we've seen a whole series of legislation apply to compelling local agencies to produce certain types of affordable housing. And so that's on the production side. Now, on the compliance side, what the state has done is that they have modified the original 1968 Surplus Land Act in 2020 to require that any public agency, county, city, special district, that wants to sell or lease a property first has to go through a disposition process, what we call the SLA process. And that requires exposing any property, any of these properties you currently own, to a state published list. It's HCD, Housing and Community Development, list of affordable housing developers and other required public agencies. So I often use the analogy is all of us have garages with lots of stuff in it. Public agencies typically buy properties for all sorts of reasons. For example, Gray Avenue, originally conceived for a city facility, a county facility, HHS. So you buy these things, and then things change or shift, the market changes, and you put them in the property garage, which is fine. You can sell them or lease them when you want. Except now with the new SLA provision, you now have what I call a garage sale permit required. And that's the state stepping in saying you have to go through this process. So next slide. And this process is really about taking a run, again, at the housing shortage and giving housing developers a first right of refusal on any public agency and land owned in California. So as I said, whether you're a school district, a county, a city, you need to follow this process. And the process itself takes about 180 days. Next slide. So the questions that a county has that needs to be answered, and that's where you are at this point. We've been doing this with staff. Which properties do we have? What are they worth? What's the possible highest and best use? Do you want to induce housing on these properties at any level? Would you use them for other purposes? Are there other public agencies and so on? These are the questions like any other owner of assets. Now that you're required to do this process, it really is incumbent on the county, which you're doing to your benefit and within recognition to this effort, you're doing it. You're sort of asking the asset questions before you put them out through this process. Next slide. And now the process is pretty specific. Step one, you declare the property surplus or exempt surplus. And if not exempt, meaning that there's some reason that it's not under the Surplus Land Act, most of these properties will not fall in that category. If exempt, then you proceed to issue what we call a notice of availability. And the county sends the NOA, this notice of availability, step two, to qualified affordable housing developers that are on the state list, as well as public agencies. And they have 60 days to respond. If you get step two, step three, if you get step two responses, then you have to enter into good faith negotiations for a period of 90 days. So in other words, good faith negotiation is discussion about price, terms and conditions, any other conveyance, transaction term points, uses of the property. Now, here's the interesting notion. The county basically must and can require getting fair market value. So if you receive no responses, okay, well then you move to step four, which is you can then go ahead and negotiate with other non-affordable housing interested parties. Okay. However, if you do receive a proposal, you have to enter into this good faith transaction or negotiation, and you can, as a county, hold out for fair market value. That's why having the appraisal, a recent appraisal, before you go to market is really important, okay? Once you've been through step 1, 2, and 3, the very last sub-step of 3 is you get the letter of compliance, and that letter of compliance really lets you then, that's sort of your garage sale permit. That lets you go out to the marketplace, market these properties on an arm's length basis, and dispose of surplus land. But there is a catch. Once you've gone through this process, very last bullet, whether you use this property for purely commercial or for residential, no matter what, you have to record a 15% affordability covenant onto the property if you're going to have 10 or more units on that property. And that affordability covenant relates to 15% of very low and low units per the county income and census data. So that's the process in a nutshell. 4 steps, about 180 days to clear it through and then sort of enter into the market. Unless you've stopped off and closed a deal with an affordable housing developer, you then enter into the market. Next slide. So the key question is, are any of your properties exempt? That's back to sort of step one. And there are some specific exemptions, like land dedicated for other public uses, or if you're de facto moving out of the garage with at least 75% restricted for lower income families, or a mixed-use project with 300 more units and 25% restricted. So you could make that determination going forward. We're just, not at that point. You could make that determination. There are some grandfathered provisions, top point, but those are pretty much past us. So those were past us in 2019 and 2022, so nothing to talk about there. Or it's just a small de minimis site and it's not suitable for affordable housing. You can get an exemption. Now, this world of SLA process and exemptions is forever shifting and changing. So we're kind of writing the specifics of this law as we move forward in practice. So at some level, there have been some modifications to these basic exemptions due to practice. There's also, next slide, about 10 pieces of legislation out there that could change and modify the SLA. But this is pretty much how it sits today. The pathway to affordable housing, if a property is not exempt surplus, given that, I've said this before, you give the notice of availability to the affordable housing developers, you notice your local agencies at the front end as to comply with the law, you provide that 90 days of good faith negotiation, you don't have to sell the property for less than fair market value, and you have that residual covenant. And, by the way, of 15% units. And by the way, if you don't comply with this, there are fines that HCD can and will impose. Next slide. As I said earlier, there's a process that we're about to go through. Today, you'll declare property surplus, August 22nd, and you'll start that chain of actions that I just described. And we'll go through it by November 1, 2023. We'll have commenced the 90-day period in early 2024. We should be at the end of that period. We'll close out the process. We'll submit it to HCD for that compliance letter. And in March, we should be pretty much clear of this process. That is what we're starting tonight or today. That's why this slide is important. I think final slide, I think this is the final slide coming up, is the fact that, as I said earlier, maybe this was the final slide, that there are other pieces of legislation pending, here we go, that, can affect this statute. This is why we say, and I'll just say this, it's easy for me to say this in public because I think as an SLA expert, I'll tell you that the legislative changes to the SLA are not likely to, be any more beneficial than they are today. So most public agencies are like your county, looking forward to getting through this process. Sooner is better than later with the SLA. And so that's pretty much where we are. You'll enact that resolution tonight. Assuming that you do that, we can start this process and we'll be back to you periodically with reports. I think that is really it for my discussion, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, at this time, I see no speaker cards. Bring it to the board for any questions.
Move to approve.
Second. And moved in second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor McKelly?
Aye.
Supervisor Flores?
Aye.
Supervisor Ziegenmeier?
Aye.
Supervisor Baines?
Aye.
Supervisor Conant?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, now we're going to go down to the sorry, you still there? That's all right. I just want to say thank you, Larry. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of the meeting.
Righty. All right, we're moving down to public comment. Members of the public will be allowed to address a board of items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors. State law provides that no discussion or action may be taken on any items not appearing on the posted agenda. So I have 3 speaker cards right now. First speaker is Yolanda Tover. Tolliver, sorry. You hit there's a button right there for the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Yolanda Tolliver, and I am an IHSS worker, and I am a member of the UDW. I care for my client, Miss Marjorie, who is impaired, almost blind, and needing assistance around her home. I am one of the 1,200 care providers right here in Sutter County. Our work is critical to our clients and their well-being, but it has fallen through the cracks, and IHSS providers have fought tooth and nail to get the respect and diligently they deserve. We are currently in the middle of a negotiation for a new contract with the county. And quite frequently, we are being disrespected as the bargaining table by not being offered the wages we deserve. There is a rapid growing care crisis in California, and it is time to take responsibility for those who need care in Sutter County. And that starts with paying care providers the wages to ensure they are enough care workers to provide visually care for those who need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card is Shakira Butler.
Hi, my name is Shakira Butler. I'm an IHSS provider and UDW member here in Sutter County. We work long hours and go above and beyond for our clients because we know the impact we make in their lives and deeply care for them. We share our stories with you for months. We know about the hard work we do. You know that our community seniors and people with disabilities rely on our care. We are the workers who keep our seniors and people with disabilities away from recurring emergency rooms, visits, or institutionalized care. Our work saves the county hundreds and thousands of dollars. We are asking that you please take a hard look at the people in front of you rather than the bottom line of the spreadsheet. Our life-saving work deserves better pay and the health care benefits that come with any dignified job. And we will keep coming back here and fighting until you pay us the wages we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tony Farley.
Tony Farley from South Sutter County. Here, thank area for your service. Thank you, Sarah. Where's Liz? Thank you, Liz. Thank you, the blonde deputy. Thank you, undersheriff, 2-star. So I get my own captain someday. Thank you, the Marine, hoorah. There's a new lawyer in town. Thank you, lawyer. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Zachary. Zachary. So I want to drive Zach's car someday. His car was light bar. Have fun with that. And thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody. You too, Carl Baines.
Thank you. All right. Seeing there's no additional speaker cards. All right. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar groups together those items which are considered non-controversial or for which prior policy direction has been given to staff and that require only routine action by the board. The chair will advise the audience that the matters may be adopted in total by one motion. However, the board may, at its opinion or upon request of a member of the public, consider any matter separately.
Move to approve 1 through 13.
Then moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor McKelly?
Aye.
Supervisor Flores?
Aye.
Supervisor Ziegenmeier?
Aye.
Supervisor Baines?
Aye.
Supervisor Conant?
Aye.
Okay, we have item 16, a public hearing. Guadalupe Rivera.
Public hearing to consider approval of the Sutter-Butte Basin Regional Levee Improvement Program, Development Impact Fee Nexus Study, and adoption of the related resolution.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, members of the board. Items number 16 and 17 on your agenda today are both public hearings related to the Sutter-Butte Flood Control Agency's Sutter Basin Regional Levee Improvement Development Impact Fee Program. And the information shared for this first presentation will also be applicable for item number 17 as well. Staff's recommendation, as noted in the staff report, is to conduct a public hearing to consider the Nexus study and adoption of the Nexus study at the conclusion of the public hearing for item number 16. In attendance today to present the information on the Nexus study and the proposed fees are Michael Bissett, Executive Director of Sabufka, and Seth Wurzel, Principal at Larson, Wurzel and Associates. So I'd like to turn the time over to Mike Bissett first.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Michael Bissett, Executive Director for Sutter-Butte Flood Control Agency. It's a pleasure seeing you all today, and I really want to thank your staff for helping us get this item before the board today. So as we just discussed, there's two public hearings, so there's a two-step process here. The first one is to adopt a resolution approving the Nexus study, which we'll talk about. And then the second item is another public hearing to adopt an ordinance amending the county's municipal code to include the regional development levy impact fee, and also establishing the proposed fee and then delegating authority to someone at staff to sign the collection agreement with Sabufka, assuming it's approved. So what this is all about, there was a fee in place, and now we're updating that fee. It was temporarily out of service for a little over a year while we implemented this update to the fee. And Seth will talk about the details of the finances, but it's a drastic reduction in what the fee was compared to what we're proposing it to be now. A little bit about what we're using the fee for. So Sutter-Butte Flood Control Agency, we're building a lot of the levee improvements protecting the Sutter-Butte Basin. Our charge is to deliver a 200-year level of flood protection to the urban areas and areas. And we've been very successful. We have delivered the 200-year protection to the urban areas, but we're still working on improving the levees to achieve that 100-year level of protection in the southern portion of the basin. As I talked about, the fee was in place for quite a while. Yuba City and the county rescinded that fee back in June of 21 to give us time to develop this regional fee. And essentially, it's an update to the fee. And like I said, it's a drastic reduction. And why that is, and Seth will get into the details, but we've been very successful to bring in state and federal money compared to how the fee was calculated previously. So now we're able to take in all of those revenues and projected revenues and develop the fee and achieve a big reduction in that fee. So I want to talk a little bit about what the fee is for. So additional funding is needed to complete Sabufka's charge. And like I said, we're still working on levee improvements. We still haven't achieved our 100-year protection in the southern portion of the basin. So that's what we're diligently working on. We have achieved our urban level of protection, big success for the area, and it does allow for development to happen. So new development under this program, they're essentially buying into the flood protection that has been achieved that allows development to happen. It's very similar to when you expand a water plant or you expand a wastewater plant. New development pays a connection fee. This is a very similar type fee on new development, but it's to pay for levee improvements. Future work is needed for levee certification. So every 5 years we have to recertify the levees. We have to bring in our engineering team that designed the improvements and constructed the improvements to come back in and reevaluate those systems and determine if they're still achieving that 200-year level of protection. That costs money. This fee will help pay for that program. And then the last bullet on this slide is future growth could be in jeopardy. So if we're not able to continuously certify the levees or make improvements to then certify the levees, that could impact future development. So what I want to do right now, I'm going to turn it over to Seth Wurzel. He's Sabufka's budget manager. He's going to talk about the legalities of this program. So what the laws were we had to follow to implement the program and how we calculated the fee.
Thank you, Michael. Again, Seth Wurzel with Larson Wurzel and Associates. We drafted the Nexus study that's before the board today for approval. So essentially, the concept for the fee is, as Michael mentioned, it would cover the entire Sutter-Butte Basin, and it considers the full scope of Sabufka's levee improvement program, as outlined by Michael in discussing Sabufka's charge and its adopted strategic plan and engineer's report that supports the assessment district. That generates the primary amount of funding for Sutter-Butte, a flood control agency. Essentially, that becomes the costs that we're funding with the fee. So a fee rate is essentially a quotient, the numerator being the total cost you're trying to fund, with the denominator being the amount of planned development upon which you're allocating those costs. So our program takes into consideration all of the funding and all of the grants, as well as all the costs, and so we were left with a net fee amount that we're trying to fund. And we've analyzed the amount of development within the entire Sutter-Butte Basin, and are using that information in order to calculate the fee. This map here represents the jurisdictional boundary of Sutter-Butte Flood Control Agency. As part of our review of the plan development, we looked at all the general plans for the cities of Biggs, Gridley, Live Oak, Yuba City, as well as Butte and Sutter County within the Sutter-Butte Basin. Essentially, this is the area that would be where the fee would be charged. So it's not throughout the entire county, and it's not throughout all of Butte County. It's just within the area Sutter-Butte Flood Control Agency's jurisdiction. In terms of our process, the idea would be to have every jurisdiction within this basin approve the fee. We're working through that process now. The cities of Gridley and Biggs have approved the fee already, taken similar actions. We're scheduled to go before the city of Live Oak in September and Butte County in September, and then we're looking forward to bringing it forward to Yuba City in October. Essentially, the requirements that we had to follow for the fee, there's two pieces of legislation. The newer one, AB 602, which was adopted in 2021, that's part of the reason why we had to take a little bit more time to update the Nexus study to be compliant with this legislation. Portions of that went into effect in 2021 and in the beginning of 2022. But essentially, AB 602, it's sort of similar to what Mr. Cosmont talked about. There's been a big push through the various types of legislation to affect affordable housing. One of the issues that AB 602 addresses is many jurisdictions had fees, such as the prior levy impact fee imposed by Sutter County and Yuba City, that were on a per unit basis. So the fee was the same regardless of the size of development. This legislation requires now that fees be charged on a per square foot basis, theory being it would make development for affordable housing more affordable, because as you develop smaller units, you're paying a smaller fee rate. And so the fee that's being proposed by Sutter-Butte would be compliant with AB 602, and in doing so, it also requires that there be another 30-day public hearing regarded specifically for the Nexus study. Understanding that most jurisdictions, in order to impose a fee by ordinance, would otherwise be required to have a public hearing anyway, the legislation doesn't necessarily allow you to do a combined public hearing. Hence, you've got two items on your board agenda packet today. Item 16, which we're presenting for right now, is the hearing, the 30-day notice hearing for the Nexus study approval. And then in order to adopt an ordinance, you have to have a public hearing. That's item 17, hence the reason why we're separating the two public hearings to ensure that we're compliant with the requirements of legislation for imposing a fee. The other legislation that governs our approach here is AB 1600. This has been around since the 80s, the late 80s. It requires the preparation of a Nexus study. We have to identify the purpose of the fee, as we discussed, for flood control improvements. The use of the fee would be to construct flood control improvements and determine the relationship between the type of development, the need for the facility, and the amount of the fee cost. So hence, we have a fee that would vary and be proportional to the type of development being imposed, the fee is being imposed on. A fee rate specific for residential versus commercial versus industrial. And I'll go over that here next. So again, we're trying to fund the net fee funded costs are related to the total cost of the improvements. The Nexus study goes through and identifies $625 million of total improvements, which would meet Sabufka's charge. That's 200-year protection in the north and 100-year protection in the south. So the Feather River West Levee System, the Sutter Bypass East Levee, and as well as projects that are needed to ensure that we have continued urban levee design criteria compliance. That would allow development to move forward, meeting the requirements of SB 5. The total revenues, we take into consideration all of the grant funding that we've received from the state, as well as all the revenues that are generated from Sutter-Butte's assessment district, including the bond proceeds that were generated through the sale of bonds secured by assessments. That results in a net fee-funded component of $21 million that we're trying to fund with this fee program. So that cost is allocated across the plan development. The net, as I mentioned, we reviewed the general plans of all the jurisdictions: Biggs, Gridley, Live Oak, Yuba City, Butte County, and Sutter County, within the unincorporated portions in the Sutter-Butte Basin. And we came up with a total amount of acreage that's essentially projected to take place within the next 30 years from adoption of the fee. So it's a little over 6,000 acres of planned development throughout the basin. We were understanding that we were trying to be conservative in terms of fee rates. We were aggressive in terms of our projection of planned development. So in looking at general plans and areas that are identified as urban reserve, we included those, assuming that they would develop in the time frame. That ultimately creates a larger denominator for our quotient, thus lower fee rates, making it more affordable. So essentially what we come up with when we take that $21 million and allocate it across the plan development, we come up with a cost share, and we estimated everything on an acreage basis. That the cost shares are shown here based on the types of development that would be charged the fees: single family, multifamily, commercial, and industrial development. There's an administrative component that allows us to ensure that the agencies that are collecting the fee on our behalf can be compensated for their administrative burden. We then took that gross developable acreage and looked at average densities, the amount of development per acre, in order to come up with a per square foot fee. We're essentially stating it in per 1,000 square feet because it's a little bit easier to talk about $428 per 1,000 square feet than 42.8 cents per foot. So it's just a presentation there. So this shows our resulting fee rates that are justified in the Nexus study. The thing that's important to note is, as Michael mentioned, it's a significant cost reduction relative to the previously adopted fee. Whereas the fee was on a per unit basis, it was a little over $3,000 per unit for single family residential. When you compare that to, say, an average 1,500 square foot home, it represents about an 84% reduction in the fee rate for that home. Now, the bigger the home, the less in the relative reduction, because now we're charging the fee on a per square foot basis. But that gives you a sense of the change. And Sutter County staff was very helpful in the staff report showing different fee calculations under the two, what was rescinded versus what would be charged under our program in the staff reports. So the fee would be charged prior to the issuance of a building permit. And again, it would apply to all planned development in the Sutter-Butte Basin that creates a flood impact. If we can demonstrate that the property does not have would not be damaged in a flood, it could be exemption. There's a series of exemptions that are outlined in the Nexus study. Again, the fee would be charged on a per square foot basis. And the way we calculate that square feet, it's based on conditioned space. So carports, garages would not be included in this when we're calculating the fee. Essentially, it would be implemented through a collection agreement with each jurisdiction would adopt the fee, enter into a collection agreement with Sutter-Butte Flood Control Agency, and that would set up the process for administering the fee. The timing of this being effective, there's a required 60-day period for an ordinance to become effective. We would delay that in the case of Sutter County until the last jurisdiction has adopted the fee. This way, it's consistent throughout the whole basin. So to the extent that Yuba City adopted this in October, become effective 60 days later, we'd essentially be looking at sometime around the first of the year for the fee to be effective. So again, our recommendation, as Guadalupe mentioned, was to receive public comment on the public hearing and conclude the first public hearing approving a resolution of adopting the Nexus study. And then we're not going to repeat this presentation for item 17, but then we'd ask you to conduct that public hearing and then take the requisite actions to adopt the ordinance or waive the first reading of the ordinance and adopt a resolution approving the fee rates and delegating authority to I believe the county administrator to execute the collection agreement. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time. Thank you very much.
All right, at this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing. Any speaker cards? Anybody from the public have any questions? I'd like to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for questions or discussion.
Through the chair.
Supervisor Conant.
So thank you first, Michael and Beth. Great presentation. If we could get the staff to pull up page 671. I think that sums up the fee structure pretty well on our packet. A significant reduction, and part of it, while they're doing that, Michael, isn't part of the money also not just state, but we didn't mention Army Corps and all the projects they did too, correct? Did that help also reduce the?
Yeah, we're taking into consideration the costs that we paid to the Army Corps for their portion of the project. So it really looks at Sutter-Butte's projects, but yes, that part of that was the Army Corps' work, and the share that was our portion of the non-federal share was included in the costs.
Right.
So actually, if you take into the Corps' cost, it's greater than a $625 million program.
Yeah. It significantly reduced the debt to the organization that we carried forward, therefore reduce the fee structure. So as you can see, a single 2,000 square foot house, $3,950 used to be $856. 4,000 square foot house, $39, same price, but $1,712. 6,000 square foot, same price. It was not based on square footage, but now it is. $2,250,568. So still over that on a 6,000 square foot house is still more than a $1,500 a year deduction in payment to the individual that has to pay per year. So that's
not per year, but per permit.
Oh, yeah,
one time
fee. And so I just think that's pretty significant, and I just thought the public might be interested in that chart.
Thank you for preparing that.
Through the chair.
Yes, Supervisor Flores.
I move approval of the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Through the chair, real fast.
Yes, Supervisor Ziegelmeyer.
I'm going to vote for this, but it's just a pain in the rear because some of this stuff, I don't see it getting done in the near future. But it's one of these things that has to get done. And I know we got our fellow colleagues right here that are always fighting on our behalf to get our levees repaired, especially for those that live out in Sutter and the Meridian Basin out there. But one of these days, we'll get them looked at and we'll get more funding from the state. That's it. Thank you.
Michael, did you want to make a comment? So you walked to the...
I was just waiting to see if there was a question. I'm good.
All right, so it's Been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Chairman, excuse me for the interruption. I just wanted to verify that the public hearing was closed.
Yeah, it was.
It did.
Are we doing both?
No, we're doing item 16.
Okay.
Supervisor McKelly?
Aye.
Supervisor Flores?
Aye.
Supervisor Ziegenmeyer? Aye. Supervisor Baines?
Aye.
Supervisor Conant?
Aye. All right, motion carries. Items. Oh, sorry. Can you please? Yes. Second item. Sorry. Item 17.
Public hearing to consider introducing an ordinance establishing the Sutter-Butte Basin Regional Levee Improvement Program Development Impact Fee and procedures for the collection and transfer of fees to the Sutter-Butte Flood Control Agency. Waive the full reading, direct the clerk to read the title only, and continue the item to September 12th, 2023 for adoption. An adoption of a resolution establishing the development impact fee to be collected for authorized development and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute a collection agreement.
So as we heard, the items or the information shared for item number 16, very similar to item number 17. So the item 16 approved the nexus study. With this action for the recommended action for item number 17 is the mechanism as to how these fees are collected, and this is the resolution associated with that.
All right, thank you. This time we're going to open up the public hearing. Seeing no speaker cards, does anybody like to speak from the public? Any questions for the public? Close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for any questions or discussion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Then moved in second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor McKelly?
Aye.
Supervisor Flores?
Aye.
Supervisor Ziegenmeyer? Supervisor Baines?
Aye.
Supervisor Conant?
Aye.
Motion carries. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the County of Sutter establishing the Sutter-Butte Basin Regional Levee Improvement Program Development Impact Fee.
Thank you. We're on item 19. Our CEO Smith.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I just wanted to mention a Sutter County employee, Jennifer Ibarra of the Children and Families Commission, will be participating in the Dance with Our Stars event this Saturday at Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, and her charity is the neonatal intensive care unit at the hospital. So just wanted to get that out there if anyone's available to go and support all the dancers. They all represent various charities related to the hospital. So thank you.
All right, we'll bring back to district reports. Start with the District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to invite everybody to Live Oak, downtown Live Oak. They're having their Fall Festival September 9th. There's a parade, starts at noon on Broadway. And then, of course, at the park there downtown, they're going to start at 1 o'clock. And that usually goes on till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I think. So that's a lot of fun. Bring the kids. It's a good time. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Conant?
Yeah, I have a few things. First of all, I'd just like everybody to be cautious. West Nile virus seems to be out in a pretty bad way right now. You know, if you're going to be out on the early dawn hours and dusk hours as well, that's when mosquitoes are most active. Make sure you wear some mosquito repellent. Also, make sure your home's screens are firmly secured and your screen doors are tight so the mosquitoes can't get in. They've been spraying to try to reduce the population. But, you know, we had a wet winter, and so I think the mosquito population is high to start with, and so the West Nile is higher. And there have been quite a few cases. As a matter of fact, I understand there are 2 cases in the hospital today from West Nile virus. Also, on a more pleasurable note, the Labor Day parade will be not this coming Monday, obviously. It's not Labor Day, but the following Monday will be Labor Day. And the pancake breakfast, cocktail hour starts at 7 a.m., gin fizzes and Bloody Marys. And then pancake breakfast at 8, and the parade is at downtown Nicholas at 10 a.m. It'll be a fun time for all, and all that money goes back to benefit the 4 local schools, East Nicholas, Pleasant Grove, Markham, and Browns. And I understand there might be a giant pumpkin growing in Rioso, God's country, that is bigger than any place else in the county. So we'll have to see how that goes. And Bishops will have a pumpkin way off around Halloween. Thank you.
All right. Supervisor Ziegelmeyer?
I'd like to close in memory of Joan Joaquin Wood, who passed away August 9th, 95 years old. That's incredible. Very nice lady. On a positive note here, Sutter High School opened up the season football last Saturday. Carson City made the long drive here. It was a 54-7 for the varsity, 35-0 for the JV, 25-0 for the freshmen. One of the best freshman football teams I've ever seen come through Sutter. It was incredible. Girls varsity volleyball won the championship in the tournament in Chico. It was pretty awesome. Tonight, both teams play in Pierce, which is where I'll be going after this meeting. So, but good luck. And I believe your daughter played last night? Did they play last night, or they didn't have a game last night? But it's awesome to see all these kids playing. I believe Yuba-City or Marysville actually won this past Friday night too. So it's great. You need something to do throughout the week. There's high school volleyball and high school football on Friday nights. Good time. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not attending any sports events tonight, but I do have something kind of cool to just talk about. 46 years ago in May 1977, my dad took me to the grand opening to see Star Wars. About an hour and a half ago, I got a text from my 21-year-old son asking me if I'm going to meet him at my house tonight for the opening of the new Star Wars movie. So it's just kind of funny. For those of us who are getting older, it's interesting to watch time go by. And it's just a little story I wanted to share. Another little story about the heart of Sutter County. I happened to be strolling to one of my favorite places, the Cupcake Magic down on Plumas Street. And as I was walking out, there was a guy playing a guitar out in front of the street. And then these large, like RVs, like fancy RVs, video cameras everywhere. And of course, curious me, I start walking onto the set of whatever was going on there. And of course, this director yelled at me and told me to move aside from the scene. But I moved aside and then spoke to the manager, and it turns out that there's this group from Yuba City. There are 4 band members of this band called Herencia de Patrones. Did I pronounce that okay? Thank you. But they are all from Yuba City. They're all very famous. I had no idea who they were. My kids did know who they were, and apparently lots of children know who they are. And I'd like to make sure we recognize them as a board. They all come from Yuba City. They all went to Yuba City High School, and I think it would make a great recognition for us to be able to do that from the heart of Sutter County, knowing that we have talent there as well. So that was really cool. Other than that, I just have a couple of quick announcements. There is a lunch mob over at Dylan's Pizza in the heart of Sutter County on Plumas Street, so everybody's invited to attend. That'll be tomorrow. Please come. Also, there is a opening for the new event center at the City Cafe that Tony Ruiz now runs right on Plumas Street as well. I tell you should look at. It's really nice what she's done there to improve the facility, and it's a great place for events. Up to about 150 people can be there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I got for today.
All right. I guess on a sad note, in District 2, that over the weekend, the Tortilleria Flores closed down. And so we'd like to have Jose Flores and his family come in, maybe give him some kind of recognition for years of service and that in the community, and recognize them on their retirement. But also just, again, I'm going to reiterate how important it is for us to reach out to all of our local businesses and see what we could do, or what type of help we could offer to retain them, to in the hopes of keeping those businesses, keeping them in business. All right, a couple announcements we have here. The city of Yuba City will be opening the Dedar S. Baines Park this Saturday, the 26th, from 8 to 10 a.m. So I encourage everybody to come out and see what they have to offer there. There's a BMX pump track that they've got. They have adult outdoor exercise equipment. There will be folks in the Parks and Rec that are going to be doing soccer drills with the kids, basketball. The basketball courts will be open, and the child playground for the ages of 2 to 12 will also be open. But yeah, I hope you all are there for the ribbon cutting. And also on the same day, on the 26th at 2 p.m., the New Adventures Church will be having their grand opening. And also for those who have not had an opportunity to go out and visit the LDS Church, or actually to tour the temple there, that they are open from 9 to 9 through September 9th, except for Sundays. So I'd encourage you all, if you have not had an opportunity to go take a tour. And if there's nothing else from the board, need a motion.
I make a motion.
Second. All right, so we moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.